It's Christmas Eve. Your phone buzzes with group chats and dinner plans. Everyone assumes you'll show up somewhere. But instead of feeling excited, you feel tired. Not sad, not lonely, just a quiet certainty that being alone feels right. Most people don't understand this, but psychology does. And what it reveals about people who choose solitude during the holidays doesn't fit the story we've been told about connection. The assumption is always the same. If you want to be alone on Christmas, something must be wrong. You're depressed, you're antisocial, you're avoiding something. But that's not what psychology shows. Research on solitude preference finds that people who choose alone time during emotionally intense moments often manage their emotions better, not worse. They aren't running from feelings, they're protecting their energy. Think about what Christmas demands: forced cheerfulness, performative gratitude, hours of small talk with people you barely know. For some minds, this isn't connection, it's effort. And the people who recognize this aren't cold or broken. They're honest about their limits. While most people push through exhaustion because they're supposed to, these individuals do something rare. They choose what actually sustains them. The guilt still shows up. Every declined invitation feels like proof you're different. But different isn't the same as broken. And that difference isn't just emotional. It's how their mind works. Here's what makes these people different. They don't experience social situations the same way most people do. In group settings, the average person looks outward. They follow conversations, read the room, match the energy. It happens without effort, but people who prefer solitude split their attention. Part of them is present. The other part is tracking their internal state, energy levels, emotional capacity, how much longer they can stay engaged. During Christmas, when expectations are louder and longer, that internal signal gets impossible to ignore. This isn't overthinking, it's awareness. Their mind is constantly checking its limits. Most people only notice exhaustion when they finally snap. These individuals feel it building in real time. The tightness in the chest, shorter answers, the growing urge to leave. And here's where conflict appears. Society praises the people who push through, who stay longer, who show up no matter how drained they feel. But for minds wired this way, pushing through doesn't create connection. It creates resentment. There's another layer to this. People who spend Christmas alone aren't just protecting their energy. They're protecting what feels meaningful to them. For most people, meaning comes from shared moments, traditions, familiar faces around a table. That's where connection feels real. But for others, meaning comes from quiet, from reflection, from having space to think and feel without an audience. Christmas makes this difference louder. The holiday is built around doing the same thing, at the same time, with everyone watching. And if that's not how your mind connects, the day can start to feel like a role you're supposed to play. Psychology shows that some people are guided more by inner values than outer expectations. They care about honesty, depth, being true to how they actually feel. So when the celebration doesn't match that, it creates distance, not from people, but from themselves. Choosing to be alone isn't missing out when it's chosen. It's choosing presence without performance. And that's what makes others uncomfortable. We've learned to treat showing up as proof of care, but that leaves no room for quieter ways of being connected. Now here's where the story gets complicated. Choosing to be alone and being forced into it are not the same thing. Some people spend Christmas alone because they want to. Others spend it alone because they don't have a choice. On the surface, they look identical. One person at home, a quiet day, no plans. But internally, the experience is completely different. For one person, the quiet feels like relief, like rest, like finally exhaling. For the other, the quiet feels heavy. It comes from loss, distance, or being left out. And yet, the world reacts to both the same way, with concern, with pity, with questions that don't quite fit. One person is protecting their peace, the other is grieving the absence of it. Both experiences are real, both matter, and even people who choose solitude feel the weight of that misunderstanding, because our culture doesn't make much room for choosing differently. So what does all of this mean for the people who actually live this way? It means living in two worlds at once, one where being alone feels necessary, and one where that choice is always questioned. Every year, the same pattern returns. Invitations arrive, expectations rise, and you're left deciding whether to explain yourself or stay quiet. Most choose quiet, because explaining rarely works. When you say you want to be alone on Christmas, people hear something else, that you're struggling, that something is wrong. They don't hear what you mean, that this is how you stay balanced, that this is how joy makes sense to you. Over time, that gap creates a different kind of loneliness, not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being misunderstood. You can be surrounded by people who care and still feel unseen. Self-understanding helps you protect what matters, but it also sets you apart from people who don't live this way. And that leaves a question hanging. Do you keep choosing what feels true to you, even if it costs you closeness? Or do you bend just enough to belong? Here's what psychology won't say directly, but the research points toward. There is no correct way to spend Christmas, and no single way to feel about it. Only what's honest for you. People who thrive in crowded rooms aren't more connected than those who need quiet. They're just wired differently. But we live in a world that celebrates one and questions the other. So if you've ever felt that pull toward solitude during the holidays, it isn't a flaw. It isn't a failure. It's information. The guilt that shows up doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've absorbed a story that never accounted for how your mind works. Most people will never fully understand this choice. They'll keep asking, keep checking, keep assuming it's a phase, and that leaves something unresolved, because at some point, everyone who lives this way faces the same quiet decision. Do you keep shaping your life around what's expected, or around what actually keeps you whole?